Joining us on the Megacast once again, it's been a while since we've last talked to him, but he is back with us now. Bill Haney is a book publisher and an author himself, and you can also find him on Independence Television talking about books very often here in northern Oakland County. Bill, thanks for being with us today.
Delighted to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Bill. So we've had some recent efforts across the country to ban certain kinds of books or books with certain subject matter. Now, this isn't something that is new in America or really across the globe, but it's something that has kind of crept back up of late in the United States. Let's start off with a little bit of the background of book banning and some of the issues that it has caused in the past. Can you give us some oversight on where, some insight on where that has, what that has caused historically in the past?
You're right. It's not a new phenomenon at all. It's up to now over 1,600 books have been banned just in 8 months. The old record was almost 1,600, 1,597. Not an admirable record, but you're right, it's not a new phenomenon. It's actually several hundred years old, even predating the founding of the Republic. And we've had several flare-ups over the years. And it's ironic in a way, but also yet understandable and almost predictable. Even though the country was founded on a belief in intellectual freedom, as you know, countries that stifle that freedom invariably fail, or they see their people live in poverty, ignorance, and depression, as with North Korea under the brutal, oppressive regimes of the Kim family. And of course, the people of the United States currently seeking to ban books would be the last to tolerate a ruling junta like that. I recall one episode, there have been a number that flare-ups like this. One was during the McCarthy years, and that emboldened several people to go out and people who really believe strenuously in individual choice and freedom would be the last to tolerate it themselves, but go out and try to ban books because it doesn't conform with one of their own personal prejudices. And I recall in 1970, Jim Bouton, who was a baseball pitcher, kind of an eccentric guy. And he wrote a book called Ball Four. And I remember one of his teammates, it took them a while, the producer, to find one of the teammates who didn't like him because he was very popular. And this player appeared and railed against the book. And at the end of the interview, the interviewer said, "Well, if it was that bad, why did you even finish reading it?" He said, "Oh, I didn't read it at all." He said, "I didn't have to. I already knew what it would say." So this is really typical of a lot of the people, regrettably, who go to the school board meetings and to other meetings, the library meetings, and criticize and demand the removal of a book that may not even be on the shelves in the library, may not even be ordered, but they heard about it from someone. And they certainly haven't read the book. So this has happened, as I said, many, many times throughout U.S. history.
We're joined by author and publisher Bill Haney on today's edition of the Megacast. Among some of the books that have been banned more recently in our local area, the closest nearby location, where this has become a bit of a controversy and an issue, has been in Dearborn, where recently the Dearborn Public Library banned 7 books, those being pushed by Sapphire, All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, And They Lived by Stephen Salvatore, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, A Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. And the commonality between many of those books is that 4 of the books follow characters who identify as LGBTQ. as well. And so, Bill, you mentioned libraries under pressure, school boards under pressure to ban some of these books. From your perspective, what is the danger, particularly in libraries and in schools, following along with some of these pressures that maybe aren't necessarily coming from the entire community, but are coming from a large portion of some of these communities, given that they are places of information, places of learning, and even if they don't necessarily agree with certain lifestyles or with certain histories, that it's important for people to learn about those histories and learn about these cultures to have a broader scope of the world around them. That's the point of reading.
Absolutely. It's a question of do you believe in intellectual freedom? Do you believe in choice or not? Or do you believe in it only for things that you personally agree with that are consistent with your own personal prejudice patterns? Uh, and so it's one era, it might be race. Mark Twain, for example, his books were banned. Many books have been banned based on the treatment of race, and some have been because of sexual content. It could be sexual identity, gender, a variety of issues that concern a small group of people. Typically, for example, uh, in during the Jim Crow era in the South, it was a hotbed for book censorship, really on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. The United Daughters of the Confederacy, were successful in getting books banned in the South that did not offer a sympathetic view of the South's loss in the Civil War. By the way, I lived in Marietta, Georgia for a period of time, and the Civil War is not called the Civil War down there. It's called the War between the States or the War of Northern Aggression, even to this day. And that's partly one of the consequences that happens when people are successful in getting some books um, taken off shelves or eliminated in any way, in any mention, let alone in a classroom. And so it does give us a distorted view of history uh, and an incorrect one that's dangerous for people. And you know, our young people have succeeded uh, in a couple of times in getting legislation passed, even as up to the Supreme Court in 1982. The court took up a case in which a group of students sued a New York school board because it had taken off books by uh, Kurt Vonnegut, whom actually I knew a bit, and Langston Hughes, because they were deemed anti-American or anti-Christian or anti-Semitic or anti-whatever. Um, and the students succeeded. And so that is law of the land. It's hardly ever enforced, but the law says specifically local school boards may not remove books from school libraries simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books. That was called, the court ruling was in Island Trees Union Free School District versus PICO, and it cited the First Amendment rights of students. So it actually is the law of the land that they can't remove books simply because they don't like the content that some small group, which often, unfortunately, has not even read the books and has no clue as to whether they're in the library, assigned in a class, or anything. They picked it up on social media from one group or another that this is bad, 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 and then they run with it without really thinking seriously about it.
We're joined by Bill Haney, the book guy, on today's edition of the Megacast. You can find his programming on Independence Television, Conversations with Bill in Northern Oakland County, and he's also a book publisher as well as an author as well. So, Bill, just before we let you go, got another 2 minutes left with you. What do you suggest can be done at the community level to combat this issue? On the one side, you have people that are going after some of these books, trying to get them out of libraries, trying to get them out of schools, and in some cases, those institutions obliging. What can people do that are on the opposite side of that argument and would argue that whether or not they agree with what is in that book or what the characters are or what stories are being told in that book, that it should be available for people to broaden their horizons and make their own informed decisions after reading these materials.
You're right. That's the principle right there, is the freedom of choice. Even if you don't espouse the principles or the ideas that are in a given book, if you truly believe in the Constitution and the intellectual freedom this country was founded on, then you've got to support the intelligent choice of books by people who really know what they're doing and have read the books, as a matter of fact, to see if they have social value. But communication is just crucial. So I would say that rather than adding to the hysteria, because frequently these meetings degenerate into histrionics and pontificating about principles that are important to that group. And it doesn't help any to add to that by trying to outshout those people, but by calmly suggesting what's at stake here and communicating, whether it's through letters to the editors, and unfortunately, we don't have many newspapers left, but communicating in every way that you can how important it is that we not infringe on the rights of others with our own individual preferences and prejudice patterns.
You can hear more conversations on this issue and other issues that are also found in many of the books that you'll be reading at your local library or in your own home with Bill, and Conversations with Bill from Independence Television. Find more information and times to watch it on independencetelevision.com. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Nice to be with you. See you again. Be well.